Okay, so why don't we look at a quick program that uses parallel arrays in a Windows Forms application. So here I have a art gallery, just some Van Gogh and Monet pieces in here, 7 paintings total, just those 2 artists. The reason I chose these is they're all kind of the same dimensions. They're all like kind of this landscape orientation. So it made things easier. But anyway, you know what? Before I start talking about the arrays, let me talk about these labels here. I kind of wanted the text centered under the painting. They still need a little polishing up, and I'm not very picky about like the interfaces being, you know, completely precise, but some students really do spend a lot of time perfecting their interfaces. So I want to show you these tools if I haven't already. We have these labels at the bottom here. And I think I just made them like really wide. I turned off the auto size property. I changed that to false. And then I think there's a text alignment property, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, which I changed to center or middle center. And then I want to bring your attention to this, where is it here? Oh, yeah, I guess maybe, yeah, you know what, I think because, oh, okay, that wasn't there before. I didn't see this format tab at this format menu before, but with my 3 buttons selected, notice how the way they're selected, the white one, like this one has white dots, and then these other 2 have black dots. So the white one is kind of like the dictator when you do this, because like that's the one that's selected first, I believe. If you want the bottom one to be the dictator, and by dictator I mean dictates where the formatting is going to go. So like if I were to align all their centers, okay, didn't notice too much of an effect here, but then we can also like make the same size, the same height and width. Okay, it changed the height and width to the height and width of the dictator, okay, with the white dots. And then also if you wanted to like increase first of all, we'll make the vertical spacing equal, so they're perfectly spaced apart. And also you can also like increase or decrease the vertical space if you want. I think I'll decrease that. It probably looked better before, but you can play with these. But if you really like to make a very tight and precise interface, then definitely check out that Format tab and play around with like really perfecting your controls and the way they line up. So anyway, getting to the arrays, so I have parallel arrays here, and let me go behind the scenes. And first of all, let's look at the top. We have, obviously I made a const int called size with the 7, a hard-coded 7 there for the number of paintings that I'm going to be using. Now I have parallel arrays, one for the title of the painting, one for the artist, one for the year the painting was created. So I have titles, artists, years, string, and an int. And then a 4th array which will hold the picture. You can make an array of anything, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be the primitive data types, the string, the decimal, the int. You can do an array of pictures, which is what we have in this program. All those pictures that you were seeing when I was browsing through the gallery, those were coming straight from this Pix array. Okay, and then also because this program, like we're kind of, you saw me using those back and next buttons. That's actually a technique I like, and I'll probably ask you to use it several times before the end of the semester. When we're going back and next, we're moving through those arrays in parallel, and we need to keep track of what element we're on at any given time, what painting we're on at any given time. And so I use this current it's just an integer. I started at 0 for the first painting, and then you'll see as we're moving back and next, we're going to increment and decrement that accordingly. Okay, so that's an important variable for keeping track of where we are in the arrays. So I want to point out that I am here at the class level variables, okay? All of these are class level variables. What does that mean? They are not created inside of a curly brace sandwich like an event handler. Okay, do you notice I'm not in here, I'm not in here, I'm up here at the class level. Yeah, I know this is a curly brace sandwich, but this is the biggie. That's the class sandwich, okay? And the reason I want to create these, I have to create these at the class level, is if you're going to have multiple sandwiches in your program access any of these, then they have to be created at the class level. They have to be kind of up top where all of the sandwiches can see them. If you were to create these in here, for example, in the form load, it's not a problem at the moment. Well, I mean, it is a problem, honestly. Let me show you why. Okay, here I'm getting ahead of myself, but down here, this is the next button where I was going to move to the next painting. And this was the back button where I was going to move to the previous painting. And now I've got all these errors because they cannot see current index, can't see the titles array, can't see the artists array, can't see the years array. Because when you create a variable or an array or whatever inside of a sandwich, it belongs to that sandwich and is private to that sandwich. It can only be seen inside of that sandwich from within that sandwich. So what I've done is I've made these local level variables, meaning local to this sandwich. And like their whole world is this tiny sandwich. And outside of here, they don't exist. And that's why these other two sandwiches can't see them. So you have to be careful. I mean, like at this point, when you're just beginning and you just want the darn thing to work, then that's fine. You can put everything at the class level for now. I mean, the rule of thumb is to create your variables as locally as possible. Like if you can get away with creating them inside of the sandwich, do it. But especially these next, several programs that we do when we're dealing with arrays, then it might be a good idea to just put everything up at the class level so you don't run into this issue. This is an issue called variable scope, and I will come back to it again in later videos. It's important, but okay, so anyway, we have our parallel arrays created up at the class level, and then in the form load is the event that executes, as you know, when the form first loads into memory. Okay, so this is a really good place for doing like housekeeping type of stuff. For example, populating your arrays. And so when the form loads, I'm going to load them all up, load up those arrays, the titles, the artists, the years they're created, the images. Look at that syntax there, just creating the image from a file. These pictures, by the way, are in the debug folder. Got to have those JPEG images in the debug folder. Got to watch my spelling very carefully. Okay. And so we're just putting those into the arrays. I like to populate my arrays like this, like one painting at a time and take care of all the details. It's up to you. But I'll typically like put one down and then I'll copy it and paste it and use that as a template for the rest of them. It's just busy work when it comes down to it. Okay, and then finally, when they're all populated, I'm loading the first image, Starry Night, I believe, into the controls on the form. Okay, so we have a label on the front, sending its text to the title of that picture. And look, that current index, I talked about that variable, that integer variable that's going to allow us to keep track of where we are within the arrays. Now, when the form first loads, we want to look at the first paintings. The current index has a 0 in it, so that's perfect. It'll land on that first painting, Starry Night, and that's the one that we first see when the program runs. So loading up from all 4 parallel arrays, loading those into the controls, the picture box, the 3 labels on the form, on the front end. So getting to the next and the back button, this is the next button here. All I have to do is increment that current index and refresh the controls. This is a direct copy. This chunk here is a direct copy of this chunk here. Okay, it is redundant code, and later in the semester we'll look at techniques to allow you to kind of make your code more concise, but for now it's fine. A little bit of redundant code isn't a big deal. So I'm incrementing and refreshing the controls, and then for the back button you just reverse it. You decrement and refresh the controls. So yeah, I think this video is getting long, so I'm going to stop this, and then I want to continue with a little more in the next video.